Hello, welcome to Spotlight, a little sunbeam of artistic joy.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
This evening, it's all about books and bursaries. We speak to the author of a new book which celebrates the tranquil beauty which are the Isle of Man's national glens. Alban and the Guardians is a very different type of book, a fantasy aimed at young adults. And if you think you have a book in you, listen up. The latest round of bursaries from the Isle of Man Arts Council are up for grabs, and it could be yours. Remember, do get in touch with any creative artistic endeavours you may be involved in, planning, hoping to create, or would really like to put in that spotlight. Poetic, visual, theatrical, musical, literary, sculpting, you name it. There must be something to do with perfume somewhere. I don't know what it is though. Email me, spotlight@manxradio.com, Howard Kane at manxradio.com. I read them all. Let's get bookish. First off, who doesn't love the island's glens? From wild to tranquil, hidden gems to popular beauty spots, there's something for everyone. The Magic of the Manx Glens by Susan Jealous reflects their varying character and amenities, and also highlights the continuing appeal of the semi-wild seclusion to be found in many of them. I spoke to Susan down the line from her home in the UK, and she told me the glens had been a lifelong love for her.
I love the Manx Glens, and I've been visiting them over 40 years. My parents lived for all that time in the Isle of Man, so we've visited them, multiple times a year with ourselves and then with the children. And actually now we come back with the grandchildren. My parents are gone, but we still visit. And I've just always loved walking those glens. I find their variety, wonderful natural beauty, seclusion, challenge, some of them, gentler, others, lovely places. And I just feel it was a great privilege to have the opportunity to write this book to showcase them, because when I wasn't allowed on the island, during the COVID year, the only year I haven't been able to come, I just thought, I wonder if there's a book. And when I came to look, there was only Suzanne Cubban's book, which is now no longer available. I thought, wow, there ought to be a book showcasing these wonderful places and make them known perhaps wider than, on the island itself. So I asked Brent Elliott, who's a great Victorian scholar of garden history. He wrote the foreword, sort of setting these glens in their wider context than just what was happening on the island. So I was pleased to do that.
So a little niche in the market, I suppose you could say, something, and it is wonderful. Like I said, they are beautiful things on the island, something we should be celebrating. Were you looking then to sort of do a guidebook per se, or was it more a case of a book that people could pick up and perhaps read even if they weren't actually going to the glens, just to sort of celebrate their beauty and their seclusion and everything which is wonderful about them?
It's not a guidebook and it's not a walks book. It's a celebration. And it's the kind of book that you can enjoy yourself. I mean, it's got wonderful original paintings and photographs. You can share it with relatives and friends exiled off the island elsewhere. And it's something you can sort of go back to, because the illustrations are as important in the book as the modest writing. And it was just trying to show that each glen has got its own character and something special. And, some people would be attracted more to one than to the other.
And we should you mentioned there some of the artwork, and of course there'll be some well-known names of some of the island's best-known artists. So there's photographs and paintings of works from the likes of Michael Starkey and Ronnie Doyle, Julia Ashby Smythe, all featured in there. Were these artists you knew, or did you actually, through the project, come to link up with them?
I didn't know them. Tracy Dean is the other one. They were introduced to me through Beth Martin, who's the coordinator of Disability Networks, because I'm donating all the profits from the book to Disability Networks for their work on the island. It was a very nice story about Tracy. She had done the Waterfalls collection, the new stamps issue that came out in April, for which I was asked to write the blurb for the presentation pack. And she allowed me to use some of those paintings in the book. Ronnie and Michael did original work, as did Julia. She's done the titles and the script. And then the photographers, Rachel Price, Peter Killier, Chris Martin, Beth Martin, all contributed their photographs very generously, as did Manx National Heritage for some of the historical images. So everybody did the work voluntarily, and it's a great collaborative Manx effort, really, to produce such a lovely book.
And you're talking about the money raised by the book going towards the disability networks. Obviously, going to Glens itself can be a problem if you have limited mobility. Does the book sort of highlight some of the Glens which are better than others?
We tried to do that. I mean, DEFA, who have, with Visit Isle of Man, have supported the printing and design of the book, are very keen to improve access. And, people who visit the Glens regularly will see how that work is progressing. But the nature of the terrain means that, you can't make Doon Glen accessible for wheelchairs or whatever. So the book just tells you which glens where you could have a reasonable walk if you had limited mobility because the surface is level, or if somebody was strong enough pushing a wheelchair on those gravel paths, or a few of them might be possible with an unassisted wheelchair, and we notice where the disabled toilets are and that kind of thing. But it's very basic information, and disability networks have now put up on their website much more detailed information for people who might want to bring a disabled friend or relative to the Glen, so they can check on the disability network's website to see, which Glen they're thinking of going to and what the problems or benefits might be.
Have you had much reaction to the book so far? Much feedback?
It's been terrific. People seem to have really loved it. We're getting continual new orders, and that's what we want. We just want people to love the Glens as we do through the medium of the book, and hopefully maybe get them better known off island, so that some visitors might be tempted to come across and see them for themselves.
Absolutely. And of course, you live off island yourself. Do you get to see the Glens yourself as often as you'd like?
It's always once or twice a year, and obviously over in April for the launch. I'll be over in July with my grandchildren for a stay. So yes, I walk the Glens regularly, and I can see the changes. Different seasons as well, different feel at different seasons, isn't there? So
just finally then, I suppose the obvious thing, would you say you have a favourite of the 18 on the island?
I think certainly Salty Wheel and Doon Glen are the ones that I always think of as, the challenging glens, one that leads to the sea, one's inland. And Ballaglass is a perennial favourite. Now that I'm, maturer in years, often a little bit more inclined to the gentler ones with a cup of tea at the end. So I'm hard-pressed to give you a single favourite. They've all got something to offer.
The Magic of the Manx Glens was launched earlier this year with the Lieutenant Governor and Lady Lorimer in attendance. It's available from your favourite bookseller, I believe, or, of course, online. And as Susan says, all proceeds will be going to charity.
Spotlight, brought to you by the Isle of Man Arts Council.
From one book to another. Luke Wilson, who writes under the name Luke Quain, was born and educated on the Isle of Man and works now as a civil engineer in the UK. However, he's always been interested in writing stories and now is a published author. How good's that? Having just brought out his first book, a fantasy novel called Alban and the Guardians, aimed at young adults. He's on the Isle of Man this week, touring around some of the island's primary schools, doing workshops and trying to encourage a new generation of Manx students to put pen to paper, or should that be finger to laptop, and discover the joy of writing for themselves. He dropped by the Spotlight studio to tell me more.
Okay, listen up. I don't have a ton of time. My name is Alban and I don't come from the same world as you. I come from a different one, with some key differences. First of all, we have our guardians. They're kind of like our spirits, but, well, they're not really. For now, though, think of them as spirits. When we're born, they form as kind of these smoking, floating blobs. They're a bit different colours for different people, but it's kind of related to your parents. No one really knows why. So it's aimed at kids about the age of, I'd say, anywhere between 10 and kind of 13, 14. It's a fantasy book based in kind of a different world to ours, but very much inspired by the Isle of Man. It's about a young kid who's has this sort of ceremony that's about to come up, where he will have his whole life determined, and he feels that everyone around him, it's quite obvious what they're going to turn out to be, but he's very uncertain, he's very shy, and doesn't quite know where he's going to fit in the world. And it's about, it's his struggles through that.
And you mentioned it's heavily based around the Isle of Man. You're from the Isle of Man yourself?
I am, yes. I was born on the Isle of Man. I was raised in Maccled. I went to Albert Road, which was in Ramsey at the time.
Up in Ramsey.
And then I went to Ramsey Grammar School. So I've been here kind of all my life, really.
Okay, and then so how was the progression from leaving school to being now a published author? Because I believe that wasn't your sort of, you didn't think, that's what I want to do with my life originally.
Well, I always, at school, I was always loving writing stories, and kind of that was always my favourite thing to do, and probably thinking of stories when I probably shouldn't have been. But
don't we all?
Yeah, but I just ended up doing science subjects, which kind of led me into a career, and I was a geological engineer for a bit, and then a civil engineer kind of now. But I sat down and kind of looked at what I wanted to do, and be an author was on that list. And I realised the only reason I'm not becoming an author is because I haven't written a book. And then, just kind of sat down and got to it.
Yeah, easier said than done, though. Yeah,
it was like a difficult process, and don't get me wrong, there's been about 16 drafts before we ended up with the finished copy. But it's been really fun. I've really enjoyed it, and it's just been interesting to see how it all works nowadays.
So this has been written basically in your spare time outside of the day job, has it? Is that the way it's worked, or?
It has, yes, and through, if I'm completely honest, working from home through COVID.
Yes.
But yes, in my spare time, I've been, I've written this book. It's been a great hobby of mine. It's been fun.
And so had the sort of seeds of the book been in your head, or was it something you were saying, you sat down and thought, you know what, I'm not going to become an author unless I actually write something and publish something? So did you already have the seeds in your head of what you wanted to write about, or did you actually, as you say, when you first thought, okay, I'm going to do it, was it then that the sort of the idea for Albin and the Guardians came about?
Well, it's been more when I was a teenager, if I'm honest, because I remember quite specifically one TT week. I think I was doing some exams of some sort and I needed a bit of a break. So I went for a walk around Blur Reservoir, and I went up into the kind of forest above the reservoir. And through all the noise that was kind of buzzing around me because of the bikes and everything during TT, I got into the middle of the forest and it was just completely silent. And it kind of like made a really effect on me then that no one knows I'm here. I don't know anyone else is anywhere else. And it was just this nice idea that you can just live in the middle of this kind of like tranquil forest, and have absolutely no idea what is directly outside of you. And that's kind of where the setting of the story kind of came about. And then, in school, I always fantasized about being whisked off to some magical world and to do some magical task during my school time. So that's kind of how the story starts.
And getting it actually published then? Because again, it's one thing, as you say, coming up with the idea. It's another thing then spending the time getting the words down on paper or on the laptop or whatever the case may be. I take it was on a laptop rather than pen and paper these days.
It was,
yes.
Yeah.
But then actually getting it out there, was that difficult?
It was actually, and I went about it thinking that the industry kind of still worked the way it kind of is more famous for working, with like more famous authors, so like J.K. Rowling and whoever. They say got publishing companies to work for them and stuff like that. Whereas nowadays, the industry more relies on you publishing it yourself and proving to a company that you can kind of essentially make them money before they will consider doing that job for you. And I think it was quite a long process for us to work that out, because there's no like guide online that tells you that's the way it is now. And it was quite a fun experience, but definitely there was a lot of learning to be had, and we had to work things out as we went along and go through different illustrators and stuff like that for front covers. And
okay,
yeah.
And how did you settle on your illustrator? Because it is an illustrated book, I take it, aimed at that sort of, you've got the pictures with the text as well.
Yeah. So it's we found one online, and we like viewed the portfolio, and it all looked great. so they said that they could deliver the final product within a few weeks, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be honest, that was probably the most stressful few weeks of the process, because it turned out that the pictures they'd submitted weren't actually the ones they could draw. They were just ones they thought they could draw. And I don't know, maybe there was, because it was online and I've actually met them in person, maybe there was a language barrier. But they just seemed to not quite understand what I was asking for. And it was like daily messaging to kind of be like, oh no, can you please change that? And actually, that's not what I meant. And little things like that. But we got there in the end, and I'm very happy with what it is now.
Oh, terrific. And you're here on the Isle of Man now doing a little tour. So what, going around schools, doing some workshops, or what's actually happening on this sort of tour on the island while you're here?
Yes, so we're visiting a few schools on the island, kind of a few different year groups, kind of focusing on year 5s and 6s. We're doing workshops where they can come up with what type of guardian they've got, which is more to do with the story. We're doing readings with them, and a competition where they can design their own front cover and hopefully win a prize from us. Yeah.
Hey, well, everyone likes a prize. Yeah. And have you been getting good response? Because I suppose, I mean, I don't have kids myself, but you might think now, if you look around the media these days, see what children sort of do a lot of the time, it all seems to be basically, you get your phone and it's constantly on various platforms. Do they still engage with the written word in traditional book format?
They really seem to, yeah. I've had quite a few of the kids that we've seen at the minute kind of come up and just say that they can't, like for actual books, they can't read it on a screen. They have to have the physical copy.
Well, I'm with them there, I must admit.
Same, yeah. I can't read a device.
It's very comforting to know that the sort of the next generation coming along are thinking that way. I thought it was just me being an old fart. But
no, I think like screens and that are good for like a few 10-second videos and things like that. But yeah, I think you need a copy to get properly invested.
Yeah, to get
for me anyway.
Yeah, to get in there. And so they are buying into it, they're enjoying that. So yeah, but terrific stuff. It sounds like you're enjoying it, and it's been a great success. They all sort of say now that, have you got the bug now? Do you feel now that you've got one copy out, could there be more Alban the Guardians, Alban the Guardians 2, or a follow-on, sequel, prequel?
That is the plan. So currently there are 4 in total for Alban in the works, hopefully coming out yearly, just before Christmas is kind of generally the plan. But yeah, I've got ideas for kind of other worlds, and I would like to continue writing like I am, and trying out new things and giving it a go. But I mean, we'll have to see how well it goes. Yeah.
Could you see yourself being a full-time writer, or do you think it's going to remain as, like you say, early mornings, late evenings, or whatever the case may be?
Oh, I mean, that would be my all-time dream, full-time author. But it'd have to see how this tour goes, and then how everything goes from then on.
Terrific. People want to get hold of the book. How do they do that? That's the most important thing. They'll want to read it, see what it's all about. How do they get hold?
So they can get a copy towards the end of the week in Waterstones in Strand Street. Or if you're one of the kids in the schools we're visiting, they can get little order forms and order them through the school. And I think they'll probably get them quicker that way.
Wonderful stuff. They say everyone has a book in them, of course. So if you think that's you, whether it be fiction, a book about the island's natural heritage, poetry, if you're looking for funding to help your idea bloom into reality, stay tuned. The latest round of the Isle of Man Arts Council bursaries are underway from those wonderful folk at the Isle of Man Arts Council. Arts Team Arts Administrator, that's a snappy title if ever I heard one, Zoe Shuttleworth gave me the lowdown on the bursaries and the student bursaries.
The student bursaries are on an annual basis, and they come up around May time we launch them. The deadline for those is the 23rd of June, as with this particular funding round as well. But this year for the student bursaries we have up to 6 available, whereas previous years we've only had 3. So that's exciting this year. Okay,
and so what sort of stuff are we talking about if people are thinking, well, they might be interested in applying? What sort of stuff could be considered for these bursaries?
For the students, it would be people going to do like graduate courses, like in anything, any art form really. We've had dancers apply, we've had drama students, music students, people that sing, anything really in the arts.
Okay, and what sort of grants are we talking about? Are we hundreds or in the low thousands, or is there a set amount?
Yeah, it's 10,000 per bursary.
Per bursary, yeah. Yes. Okay, depending on what the actual bursary is, as it were.
Well, yeah. There's so the 6 that are available. There's the Isle of Man Arts Council bursary, which is for £10,000. There's the Jonathan Gallo bursary for £10,000, and the Norman Sale award, which is for £10,000 as well. And then there's 3 additional £10,000 bursaries up for grabs, really.
And is the process, is it difficult? Is it complicated to actually apply?
No, and if anyone is struggling with the process, we are here to help. Just call us. It's all online, and basically the application forms online guide you through what documents we require.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, just really sell yourself. That's what they're looking for.
And the people in the first instance, then, would they find the details to sort of put in for the application via the website, or do they need to ring, or what's the best plan?
Via the website, but if they are struggling to locate it, then just give us a ring, because there's always someone there to help.
And do any of them, do they need to sort of report back on what they've been doing with their bursary money?
Yes, we do ask for sort of them to keep in touch with us, and like Ali, my colleague, she'll send Q&As that we can feature on our socials and things. So we like to, sort of promote what everybody's up to and say, look, it's really great what they're doing. You could do that too. Come and apply. Come and
get out there. Absolutely. Yeah. So that's the student bursaries. The funding awards then, the general funding, where are we in the rounds for those?
So it's currently open, and applications for this next funding round close on the 23rd of June.
And this is sort of wide open to anyone?
Yeah, this is absolutely anybody. Yeah, anybody on the island.
And how much sort of detail? Because again, you often look at this and you can imagine a lot of people hearing these and thinking, oh, I don't know, but being a bit worried. They might have an idea. It might be a bit wacky. They might not have it, costed out, or have it. How detailed does it actually need to be for them to come here? Or can they sort of come with a, the notion of an idea and saying, I'm thinking of doing this?
Yeah, they can come and talk to us. In the first instance, we usually recommend that if you're not, if it's not 100%. Where you'd kind of expect it to be, come and talk to us, and then we can guide you through it. We can say whether we think the council would, because there's certain things obviously the council don't fund. So if you have that included in your idea, then we'd be able to say that part of it, leave that out, and then make the application as strong as possible.
And this can be anything again, from sort of dance to music to wanting to publish a book or poetry or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. If you want to put on an exhibition, if you're a painter, or like you say, publishing books. We've had poets come to us, that want to put on maybe a performance or something, or music societies, anything. People that want equipment. For home studios, that sort of thing.
And who actually, from your point of view in the Arts Council, how is it actually decided? Is there a sort of a group who sits and goes through each application?
It's the council members.
It is the council members themselves.
We as the officers would sort of check that every document that's required is there, and then we would, give applicants an opportunity to provide missing information, and then it goes to the council members to make the decision. They're very popular, and they're getting more and more popular each funding round as well.
Yeah, and I know it makes all the difference, particularly in many areas of art where without some of these funding rounds, some of these things would never get off the ground. As you say, some of the exhibitions, or again, the number of times I see poets here who have brought out a collection, and I think it's only happened because they've got a grant.
Yeah, and it's great, and it's lovely to see that, to be able to enable people to do their passion projects is great. It's probably the best bit of the job, I think.
Terrific. So just give us those details again if you want to get in touch with either for the student bursaries or the funding awards, the first or best address to go to.
So it's IOM Arts Council at gov.im if you want any information from us, and iomarts.com for the website, and if you want to call us, it's 694 598.
What are you waiting for? Don't forget, if you didn't get those details, the podcast of Spotlight will be available straight after this show is finished. You can download it or listen again and get all the gen you need. Go on, do it. You know you want to. That's about it for this week. Don't forget, if you want to hear anything again, go to manxradio.com, download the Spotlight podcast as I suggested, listen where and when you want. Why not try it whilst looking for dolphins off the Marine Drive? Who knows, they may listen via DAB, Dolphin Audio Broadcasting. See you next week when we'll be catching up with queer Manx poet Simon Mandrell and have the latest of our art gallery walkarounds. Look after yourselves and whatever you're doing, be creative about it. Cheerio.